Okay, I'm back. Technical difficulties. Well, tonight we are talking about 1 Kings chapter 18. We left off at 17. Now remember last week, when we, or the week before, when we were talking about Elijah and kind of what appeared to be the arrogance of Elijah with the widow woman, if you remember. But it ended up that when she did what she was told, it ended up saving her son's life because she had done what the prophet said. So the message there is, no matter what you may think about what God says, when you do what God says, there's always a blessing involved. If nothing else than to do God's will. So today, as we go in and we look at Elijah's message to Ahab. Now, I'd like to start classes by telling everybody that we talk about some things while we eat dinner. For those of you on Facebook, our Bible study class starts at 7. We eat dinner, we have fellowship, and we talk about stuff from 7 to 8. Sometimes we talk about a little Bible study that we do. Sometimes we talk about things that apply to the ministry or to the class. Today we talked about our project that we're doing, and that is replacing windows in the parsonage here at the church. Oh, hey, Barbie's online. Hi, Barbie. Good to see you. And Sherry and Florence are on. I'm glad you guys joined us. So anyway, we talked about that and we worked out a game plan. We also talked about the church is planning a walk around to meet everybody in the neighborhood and invite them to a weenie roast that was supposed to happen this last weekend, but somebody in the church had a stroke and those things were Barbie wants to know if we had supper for her. Yeah, we did. We had pizza from Papa Murphy's. It was awesome, by the way. So anyway, lost my train of thought. That's all right. It's a small train. All right. Elijah's message to Ahab. Who wants to read the starting of chapter 18? Okay, I will. And it came to pass after many days that the word of the Lord came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go, present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the earth. Now remember, in the last chapter we heard that Elijah told everybody that there would be no rain on the land until he said so. And so there's been no rain, there's been a drought. And that was why Elijah ended up at the widow woman's house, because the lake had dried up where he was staying. So now the drought has been going on for a while, and God is now saying, go talk to Ahab now that I've got his attention, and I'm going to bring rain. But not until we talk to Ahab. So Elijah went to present himself to Ahab, and there was a severe famine in Samaria. Well, of course there was a famine. There's no water to water the herds or the crops or anything else. And Ahab had called Obadiah, who was in charge of his house. Now Obadiah feared the Lord greatly. For so it was, while Jezebel massacred the prophets of the Lord, that Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them, 50 to a cave, and had fed them with bread and water. So this Obadiah was really a man of God. He was taking care of God's prophets to make sure there was going to be a remnant. And Ahab had said to Obadiah, Go into the land to all the springs of water and to all the brooks. Perhaps we may find grass to keep the horses and mules alive, so that we will not have to kill any livestock. So they divided the land between them to explore it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. Now as Obadiah was on his way, suddenly Elijah met him. And he recognized him and fell on his face and said, Is that you, my lord Elijah? And he answered him, It is I. Go tell your master, Elijah is here. So he said, How have I sinned that you are delivering your servant into the hand of Ahab to kill me? The Lord your God lives. There is no nation or kingdom where my master has not sent someone to hunt for you. And when they said he is not here, he took an oath from the kingdom or nation that they could not find you. And now you say, Go tell your master Elijah is here. Why do you think Ahab was after Elijah? Why do you think Ahab was trying to track down Elijah? Why would he do that?
Find out where he did,
Do what?
find out where he did the 50,
Oh, no, he didn't know about that.
oh,
No. I mean, think about it. If you're the king of a country and some guy waddles in and says, there's not going to be any rain in this land, there's going to be a famine, and people are going to die until I say so. I mean, doesn't that put a great big red X on your back? I mean, Ahab wants to get this guy and force him to say, you're going to have rain. So he's sending guys out everywhere to go get it. So now after X amount of time, Elijah comes out and says, go tell Ahab I'm here. And so Obadiah is saying, if I go do that, he's going to kill me and you. So now I want you to think about this. Put yourself in Obadiah's position. You're a woman of God, and your boss has said, if you ever see this guy, I'm going to shoot him between the eyes. Because he did X, Y, Z to my business, or my wife, or my property, or my whatever. And then this guy comes to you and says, go tell your master I'm here. Now, what are you going to do? And why are you going to do that? If your master's bad enough to kill him, don't you think he's probably going to kill you in the process? Yeah. So, would you do that, or would you say, oh, heck no. You want to see him? Let me tell you where he's at. You go tell him. That's what I do. And that's what Obadiah does. Obadiah says, why are you sending me to kill myself? You go do it. The answer is faith. Elijah is doing exactly what God told him to do. Obadiah needs to do the same thing. Go ahead.
Well, if it, maybe this is a naive statement because it goes against it's so much.
Speak
against
up.
the
I
flesh.
can't hear you over the.
Okay. Maybe this is an unrealistic statement, but wouldn't you want to pray about it and like see what the Spirit is telling you to do? Like, because wouldn't you have
Hi, John.
a calmness about the decision if it was from God? See what I'm saying?
Sure.
Or would your flesh just be like, override that because it's
Sure.
such a dire...
Hindsight is always 20/20. How many times in the day when somebody asks you to do something, do you say, let me pray about that before I answer?
Well, but not every day does somebody ask me to put my life in harm's way.
Okay, as an assistant pastor at this church, when somebody asks you to do something, do you jump in and say yes or no, or do you say, let me pray about it? Most pastors jump in and say yes or no, and a lot of my time when I talk to assistant pastors and pastors, I always have to tell them, put up boundaries. You are nobody's doormat. You and I talked about it before class. To the outside person, what you did seemed cold. Where I stand, boundaries are needed. We all need to have boundaries, okay? When you are, especially when you are available to the public, they have got, I went to a pastor one day, and this has been many, many years ago, and I was having marital problems. And talked to him on the phone, and his response to me was very cold. He said, "My office hours are 8 to 5 at the church, call and make an appointment." And I thought, wow, my marriage is on the line. I'm out of my house. I got no place to go. And you're telling me your office hours are 8 to 5. You're a jerk. It wasn't until years later when I figured out this guy had 2,000 people in his congregation. If he allows 3,000 people to call him and complain to him about all the issues that are going on, he will be dead in a year.
I also feel like if you love somebody, you want them to learn what they have to learn, so you have to learn where your boundaries are as well in that process.
Well, that's true, but in the situation we were talking about, I mean, there are several ways you could have done that. If she was saved, you could have looked at her as a newborn babe and mollycoddled her. Okay? And maybe she needed that. If not, the other way would be exactly what you did. Another way would have been to just say, yeah, come on in, I'm good. There are different ways that you can handle every situation. The boundaries that you set up are between you and God and the people around you.
Well, I feel like you have to make sure that they're in line with the healing process and continuing to enable somebody and
Speak up.
coddling someone that continues on in the same situation is not conducive not only to my privacy but to their growth.
Absolutely.
So I feel like those boundaries have to be set in a way, like parameters that are going to guide them toward their healing.
So let's look at this from Obadiah's standpoint. He is working for his master, and he's out looking for water to save the animals. And Elijah comes to him and says, "Go tell your master I'm here." In the first place, that's going to take him away from the job that his master gave him. Secondly, it's going to be bringing the master some bad news. This jerk that caused my famine and took away my water is now here, and he's got the gall to come see me. So nobody wins here in this situation from Obadiah's standpoint. He doesn't win. If he ignores it, he has to face Elijah and God. If he does it, he has to face his master. If he does nothing, then he has to face them both. Obadiah is in a no-win situation. He's got to have faith. So when you make the decision that you make to set up boundaries, you probably ticked her off.
For a hot second.
Yeah.
But she knows I love her.
It doesn't, how you get from A to D doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, at that minute you ticked her off. And you probably set into a chain of events that happened.
The devil.
But if you and God have set up these borders and these boundaries, and you're convinced that they are from God, then why would you worry? So she's upset. She'll figure it out. And Obadiah is in the same position. If he has faith, he's going to go do exactly what Elijah said and take the consequences. What's that saying? God does not call the equipped, he equips the called. Obadiah is being called. Okay, so where did I leave off? And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am gone from you, that the Spirit of the Lord will carry you to a place I do not know. So when I go and tell Ahab, and he cannot find you, he will kill me. This is Obadiah trying to talk his way out of Elijah. But I, your servant, have feared the Lord from my youth. Was it not reported to my Lord what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of the Lord? And I hid 100 men of the Lord's prophets, 50 to a cave, and fed them with bread and water. And now you say, go tell your master, Elijah is here. He will kill me. So Obadiah is having a heck of a time here. Then Elijah said, as the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I will surely present myself to him today. Now notice Elijah doesn't say, the Lord's going to be with you. Nothing's going to happen to you. Go talk to your master. I'm from God. It's all going to be good. He doesn't say any of that. He just, again, arrogantly says, leaving the impression no matter what you say or do, as the Lord lives, I'm going to talk to Ahab today. Now either you can go do it or I can go do it, but that's going to happen. Remember how he talked to the widow woman. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab. The faith kicks in. When Ahab figures out, okay, I can do what the prophet is saying, and maybe, okay, now this is going to sound really selfish, but this is how the brain works. Obadiah might have been thinking, okay, if I listen to my master who is not from God, I know what's going to happen. But if I do what the man of God tells me, there might be a blessing involved. There might be death involved, but there might be a blessing. So what does he do? When Ahab says, one way or the other, I'm going to talk to your boss today. Either you can go get him or I can go get him. I'm asking you. Okay, so I want to go down this rabbit trail. We know that God has made a choice, a conscious choice, that to do things in this world, he has chosen to work through humans, right? He made that decision. And he uses his Son, he uses the Holy Spirit, and he uses a myriad of ways of communicating to humans to do what he wants us to do, right? Are we good so far? Okay. So, here we see that God went to his prophet, Elijah. So, by the way, today, who is God's prophets today?
We are.
I mean, we're the ones who fulfill the words.
Well, let's talk about the word prophet so we understand. What did the prophets do in the Old Testament? And the New Testament, actually. What did the prophets do? And if anybody says, tell us the future, I will shoot you. That's not what they do.
Speak the word of God.
Thank you. That's exactly right. Say that louder.
Speak the word of the Lord.
That's exactly right. So who does that today?
Preacher.
Preachers and teachers. So if you're on Facebook and you see anybody that has the word prophet or prophetess before their name, delete them from your Facebook. That is not a prophet. The prophet is the one who brings you the word of God. So, if we today, so let's say that you're a prophet or a teacher, and you believe God is giving you a message. Now, I have yet to see where God speaks to somebody and asks them to do something where there is not what Warren calls a crisis of faith. Okay? Where, remember the story I told you about Bradley and the rain? Okay. That was a crisis of faith. Because in front of this young man, I'm either going to be embarrassed to death and God is not going to step up and answer that prayer, which means I heard wrong, and I'm going to make a jerk out of myself. Or God's going to step up and there's going to be a miracle happen in the next 30 seconds. One of those two things is going to happen. And the crisis is, which way do I jump? And that goes the same for every one of you. You're standing in line at the grocery store, and you feel like a voice comes to you and says, the lady behind you is really short on money. She's a single mom. She has no money. She's out of link card, and she's out of money. I need you to pay $20 on her bill. You're standing at the register, and the lady is ringing you out. You got 30 seconds to make a decision. What are you going to do? Now, what you do doesn't matter. My point is, you're at a crisis of faith. And you have several options. Lord, I don't have 20 bucks to spare. Or I'm on my link card too. Or I don't know her from Who Shot John. Present company said. So what do you do? Do you tell the lady, take an extra 20 out, put it on her bill? Or do you say, yeah, I must have heard wrong, and take the money and walk out? Crisis of faith. Every time God asks you to move, there's always the crisis of faith. What if? Ahab had, or Obadiah had the what if. And he spent 3 paragraphs trying to convince Ahab of the what if. And Ahab finally said, look, I am not arguing with you. I'm going to talk to your boss today, and either you can get in line and get the blessing, or I'll go get it myself. We've all been there. Every one of us has had that. Every one of us has had a crisis of faith. I still remember one where I responded poorly. When I had my route, I got home one morning, it was like 5:30 in the morning, still black outside, and it was wintertime, and I was living over where you and Eric used to live on Governor, above the old bookstore. And I pulled up, got out of my car, took 10 steps, and out of nowhere comes this bicycle with an old black guy riding on the bike. And he pulls right up next to me and stops. And instantly, because of where I was living, my defenses went up. And he said, hey, I need some money for coffee. Have you got any money? No, I didn't. I never carried money, but I could have gone upstairs and got some. And I said, no, I don't. He said, okay, thank you, and off we drove. And I got upstairs and I thought, what if that was an example of we don't know that angels walk among us?
Yeah, that's what
I
I
always
think that.
And so then I thought, oh man, I just flunked my test. And the worst it would have cost me was a $5 bill. I always regret that. Crisis of faith. Obadiah had his crisis of faith, and he did the right thing. He fought it, he objected, and he didn't want to do it, but he did it anyway. And here's how we know the answer. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. Notice it doesn't say Ahab killed Obadiah. It just said Ahab went to meet Elijah. Then it happened when Ahab saw Elijah, and Ahab said to him, is that you, O troubler of Israel? That's his way of saying, so there you are, you dirty rat. Dude. And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house have. Oh. So now he turned the tables right around and says, it's not me that caused the rain. You and your family did. Go look in the mirror.
Oh boy, that's gonna get you killed.
Yeah, that's winning friends and influencing people. And that you have forsaken the commandments. So now he said, okay, so you're the one that caused the problems. And if you don't believe me, here, let me spell it out for you. And that you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord and have followed the Baals. The Baals are the false gods. Okay? And then he goes on. Now therefore, send and gather all Israel to me on Mount Carmel, the 450 prophets of Baal, and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table. Okay. So we got Ahab and Jezebel, husband and wife, both of them meaner and nastier than Satan himself. They worship Baal and Asherah. Both of those are fertility gods that God deals with throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, where wicked kings built temples for them on high. These are the same people that had temple hookers. You know, you would go to church, and there would be hookers there. Yeah.
Do you think that those two almost like they're false gods, but there's a demonic force behind that? Do you think that is prevalent in Hollywood today and like with the Illuminati and because they're so
Not only Hollywood, I think you're limiting yourself.
government,
I
which
think-
is the world period.
I think, you know, and I don't want to get too deep into it. I want to kind of stick to this, but I do believe that the world is Satan's playground, and the Christians are God's outposts. And that's why we need to have Bible studies, and we need to meet in church. Not because church is a building, but because it's a place where we can recharge our batteries. Because the world is an evil place, and the longer it goes, the more evil it gets. And so Ahab and Jezebel represent this. And so what